People often talk about capitalism as if it's some kind of newfangled thing, a fall from grace, that nature was somehow different from capitalism, and capitalism has ruined things. And I understand why. I've thought that way for many years myself. But recently I've noticed that that's actually not true. Now, there's a problem with capitalism, but it's not capitalism itself. It's not the competition and the cooperation, the tribalism, all of that. That's been going on for 3.6 billion years. So no, that's not actually new. Life itself is, you could say, unmoral. It's not immoral, it's just morality doesn't come into it, because morality is the idea that there are some kind of universal laws of how everybody should behave so as to maintain society, that's a new thing. That's something that we've been able to do since we got language. We've been able to talk about what everyone should do. That's not how nature works itself. Nature without language is basically selfish. As you're looking out for you and yours. That's what all organisms have been doing for 3.6 billion years. Okay, so what is the difference? Actually, it's language. It's symbolic competency, which is unique to humans. Only humans have this capacity to talk about reality and also to talk about non-reality. So we can imagine all sorts of things that animals can't imagine. Animals are in the present, in the real world. They're stuck there because they don't have language by which they can imagine all sorts of real and imaginary things. So what is different about our capitalism from the kind of capitalism you see in nature is primarily the symbols. It's the symbolic capacity of ours. Now, we are symbolholics. We humans are addicted to symbols. I mean, by symbols, I mean language, but not just language. There's a difference between how we interpret our reality and how animals interpret their reality, or any kind of organisms, including plants. Take Pavlovs Dog for an example of how to think about this. There are two core kinds of interpretive processes that go on in Pavlov's dog. One is sameness. That is, Pavlov's dog hears similar bells and gets a similar response, a similar consequence for them. So the bells ring, and they're all similar. The bells sound similar to the dog. And then there's what they point to, what they're related to in time and space, which is after the bell rings, the dog gets a taco. So it's Taco Bell. He gets an association between similar things, similar tacos, similar bells. That's called iconicity, which is the sameness, and indexicality, which is the pointingness, that bells point to tacos somehow. Okay, that's how all organisms operate, but we have this additional thing, which is called our symbolic competence, which is our ability to maintain as a society a bunch of tokens, arbitrary tokens, like letters or numbers or dollars even, that is printed money, that we then also hold by social convention as referring to certain things. So with both language and money and other symbols, we can detach from reality in a way that an animal can't. The animal's got to be dealing with similar things in reality and relationships in reality, the indexical, the pointing part of reality, and they're grounded. As a result, you could never convince an animal that something imaginary, like money, or like a rhinoceros in a tutu balancing the universe on its horn, its candy corn horn, you could never get through to an animal about that. It doesn't live in that realm. We humans live in two realms. And in one of them, the symbolic realm, we can get very detached from reality. And so what's different about us is not the competition and cooperation you see in capitalism. No, that's been going on for 3.6 billion years. What's different about us is the capacity, linguists would call it displacement, the ability to use these tokens, in this case money, and go wild. So we can build up all sorts of unrealistic projects, unrealistic intentions, unrealistic campaigns and crusades in that cooperation and competition that has been going on all along. So it's not the capitalism, actually, it's the symbolism. And I don't mean symbolism in that other sense where the cross is symbolic of, I don't mean it exclusively. The cross is symbolic of Christ. That is an example of symbolic competency in play, and I would say one that enables many people to get very detached from reality. But I'm talking more broadly about our symbolic competence. The fact that we live in these societies and cannot live outside of them. Humans really need to live in the symbol sphere, in the realm of symbols. That's why we learn language early on. That's why we get in so much trouble if we're Helen Keller, until she figured out the symbolic system, until she realized that words stand for things, that arbitrary sounds and tokens, like Braille, stands for something. That's held by social convention. No other critter does it to the extent we do. There's some animals that have gotten close, some bonobos and chimps, that have been able to develop a vocabulary of maybe 200, 250 symbols, but we have thousands, and we kind of live in that realm. We live in two realms, and one of them is the real world, and one is the symbolic world. And if the real world starts to get a little scary to us, we can always escape to the symbolic world, where we become legends in our own mind. If I was to prognose the most likely cause of death for us, a symbolic species, that is extinction for us, it would be a dissociation death spiral. That is, we could start to live more and more in the realm of symbols, less and less in the world of reality, less and less in reality, neglecting reality until we're doomed. Because reality still is the thing we have to adapt to reality or die. So please stop talking about it as though there's a myth of separateness. No, separateness has actually been with us since the beginning of life. Organisms are born as individuals, and they look out for themselves and theirs, their families. They pursue biological reproductive success. But that is not anywhere near the same thing as we do when we come up with moral ideas through language, and suggest that they should be universal, and feel grand about having come up with this, what I call if I were in charge of the world. So come up with our scheme for how everyone should live, and then impose it on the world, this kind of detached ideal that we could only have come up with through symbols. That's my story, and I'm sticking to it.